for the entirety of humanity thus far, what we have is we have, basically a little ocean where we have a bunch of different ships. We have a bunch of different ships with holes in their hulls, and they all are taking on water. They're open systems. There's literally a hole in their hull, and they're taking on water. And so they're sinking at different rates. Again, to go back to the British pound, 800 years ago or so, you could trade 1 pound for almost a dozen cows. And obviously today, the cows are much more expensive in relative terms to the pound, but cows are also cheaper because, we have more humans or more cows, and the value of 1 cow in real terms is much cheaper than it used to be. However, the British pound conversion rate to cows is significantly higher. And the reason for that is that cattle, if we can think of cattle as a system, is basically becoming more and more affordable to people as that system leaks value, it leaks energy, and it becomes more affordable, and the brute force physical cost of acquiring cows goes down. But the value of the pound goes down faster. So if we're thinking of 2 ships, the pound is sinking at a faster rate than the cow. And so what people have done in the ancient world is that they would save in things that, quote unquote, sunk the slowest. You save in gold, you save in cattle and, lambs. And, back in the day, your farm was your livelihood. And then, of course, today, a better example would be that of real estate or bonds or stocks. There's an endless amount of real estate. We can always make more houses. We can always build higher, and perhaps maybe in the future build more land, who knows, or at least more efficiently use our land. Take stocks. There's an endless amount of companies, an endless amount of brands, and those companies can issue more stocks. Granted, there are regulations that they have, but at the end of the day, there's an endless amount of stocks that could be issued to the market. And bonds, similarly, there are regulations and expectations for, these fixed income assets. But at the end of the day, we can create more debt. We can always make more debt. And so what we have here are a series of open systems that we save in versus cash, because we can't trust our cash. Who's going to trust our cash? It's the most open system of all in our modern world. And so we're leaving this world where we have these 99 ships that are sinking at different rates, and we're entering this world where for the first time we have a closed monetary system. And this is something that was predicted. I spoke about this on my previous podcast and in my threads as well. But this is something that was predicted by many folks. 4 of the most famous ones were Tesla in 1900, and then Ford in 21, Hayek in 84, and Friedman in 1999. These were some of those famous people that predicted the eventual arrival of this closed ledger. Granted, they predicted different aspects of it, but they all pretty much predicted the same thing, that eventually, as the world becomes more and more prosperous, that we can't save in these assets anymore, and we eventually need something, some ledger we can create that's actually a consistent monetary stock of the human race, basically. And that's what we have here, that we have infinite everything, but we have one closed monetary system. And really quick, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts from an engineer's perspective. One of the metaphors I love is that of oxygen. Of all the assets in the world, the most essential one for human survival is oxygen. Water is important. Heating is important. It's very cold outside. I need that to live. Food obviously is important, but oxygen, from a physiological standpoint, is the most essential commodity of the human race. Your brain, on a scientific level, has the greatest and fastest fear response of a lack of oxygen. So, technically speaking, oxygen is the most valuable thing in our lives that we could own, and yet we never pay for it. And the reason we never pay for it is because its supply is infinite. And so, yes, demand is important, but supply, I would argue, is just as important and more important, because if there's an infinite supply of a very valuable thing, its price, in relative terms to everything else, trends down forever. And so the Mona Lisa is the other example I like to use. There's only one Mona Lisa. You don't need it to survive. You're not going to die in 5 minutes or ever if the Mona Lisa were to be destroyed somehow in some horrific accident. But yet the price, the exchange rate, say, between the Mona Lisa and oxygen is trending up forever. If you were to denominate the Mona Lisa in terms of oxygen, its value, relative value, just continues to appreciate. And that's more or less what we have here, that we have all these infinite systems. And eventually it became evident to these geniuses of the past and to the Bitcoiners of today that eventually, if we're going to continue into the information age, we need some sort of decentralized, distributed monetary system that has a fixed supply cap, that's an immutable ledger, and all these other qualities of good money, which we don't have time to get into here. But basically, what it is a system that is closed. And that's why, Sailor, as an example you brought up earlier, he's an engineer. And in my discussion, you're an engineer, and other people I talk to, in my personal experience, engineers understand Bitcoin much faster than financial experts. And I believe that's because engineers are trained to understand the strength and survivability of a given system. And once one realizes that Bitcoin is designed to be an economic energy storage system that doesn't have an energy leak as a function of time, you realize that it's inevitable. So I want to hear your thoughts on that as an engineer.
As an engineer, you got me all excited there with that last statement, because I mean it's really coming down to the law of conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And when you're looking at the existing system, the fiat system, I mean, let's just say the whole fiat global system is 100 units, right? And then tomorrow it's 105 units. And then the day after that, it's 110 units. You are quote unquote creating energy in that system, right? It's not 100 for everybody to use. And if people abuse the unit that they've got, well, they're going to lose it. And if they've done smart and intelligent things with that, maybe they're going to inherit more of those units. You don't have that. And it goes back to the chart that you had there, where when you corrupt the ledger and you corrupt the money, you're corrupting the incentive structure of how people are going to act. And so they're clawing for these energy units that are being produced and inserted into a system that is not paying attention to the laws of the conservation of energy. And they're trying to manipulate it into their favor, and they're looking for the gatekeepers, right? It all comes down at that point to who's the gatekeeper that's adding these monetary units into the system, and how can I gain political favor with them as fast and as close to them as I possibly can. So it's exciting. I love that you put those four up there. Was it Ford who was saying that that there needed to be some tie to it, like an energy ledger? I forget which one had that. I forget which one of them had that quote, but they were like literally saying that it needed to be somehow through some type of technological advancement that the ledger is tied to energy itself. I forget which one of them said it, though.
I really appreciate you taking the time to engage with this Bitcoin content. I put in so much work into these educational services, put them out there for free, hopefully to get as many people interested in these messages as possible and having new perspectives when it comes to understanding Bitcoin. And this is because I think the first and foremost problem facing Bitcoin adoption is the need for education. And so hopefully this video has serviced that need for you. And secondly, it's the need for self-custody. Self-custodying your Bitcoin is extremely important, and I highly encourage you to do it as soon as possible, because as Bitcoin increases in adoption, increases in speed, and increases in demand, not just from people, but from high net worth individuals, companies, corporations, and organizations. In all these cases, the demand for self-custody solutions is only going to exponentially increase. And so wherever you are in your Bitcoin journey, if you are buying Bitcoin, if you are trying to understand Bitcoin better, I highly encourage that after the education, you quickly get into that self-custody route. It's very intimidating for people. It's very hard. People understand where to go. And that's why not only do I put out this free content out there for you to enjoy, but I also do everything I can to accelerate that self-custody adoption. So I do work at the Bitcoin Advisor. If you have an interest in a collaborative custody multi-sig solution, an estate plan, not just for you, but for your family, for your kids, your loved ones, your business, your church, your organization, whatever it is, if you are looking to have an understanding of self-custody, the trade-offs of single sig, of multi-sig, collaborative custody, fully self-sovereign custody, whatever the case, I'm happy to help. Our primary goal, my primary goal, is to help you have a secure transition of your Bitcoin off exchanges into your own hands. Okay, I'm here to simplify the process, address your challenges and your questions, and ensure you feel confident every step of the way. So you can find me at thebitcoinadvisor.com/Broyles. You can book a free consultation with me there. You can book a free meeting with there. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And I care far less about if you hire me or not. I care far more about education, which is why we give out dozens of pages of free content for you to enjoy and consume and learn about Bitcoin self-custody, so that you can have generational wealth for you and your future generations without losing sleep. So if you like some of that free documents and free education about Bitcoin, I'm happy to share that with you. Again, just go to the Bitcoin Advisor, Luke Broyles. You can find my booking for meeting a consultation with me. So thank you again for enjoying this Bitcoin educational content. And secondly, whether you use me or not, whether you do single sig, multi-sig, whatever the case, please start taking self-custody, start getting your Bitcoins off exchanges as soon as possible. Link in the description. Thanks. Yeah, oh boy, you're gonna derail me a little bit here, but I have to now. I have to say it.
Yeah.
So you're right. Tesla was the first, and he predicted certain aspects of Bitcoin, which we don't have time to get into. But Ford, since you brought him up, it's really fascinating. Ford was the one, in my opinion, that was the one that first predicted the monetary aspects of this ledger that today we call Bitcoin. And what he said is that eventually we need a way to basically create this ledger that has a tie to the natural wealth of the world. Now, what the heck does that mean? Well, for the average person listening, I'm really going to rush through this here, but what we need if we're going to transition from the ancient world of the industrial age and upgrade to the modern world of the information age, what we're doing now, is the first thing we need is an global energy system that makes energy universal and a consistent unit. The second thing we need after an energy layer is a information layer. Information age, you got to have a way to transfer energy into information. Okay. And the third system is you need a way to communicate that information from one area to another, one person to another, over time, some way you need the ability to communicate that information with extremely low friction cost over space and time. And then the fourth and final layer to that is you need a way of transferring value. And this is the order it has to happen. You need energy first, so something that is within the laws of physics, like you're saying. And then second, you need a way to turn that into information, something a little more abstract. And third, you need a way to communicate that. And then once you have those three, only then can you then create the monetary layer. Because, again, what is money? Money is economic energy, and then money is information. And money is a system of communicating that information with one another. It's a ledger of economic energy that communicates. So these are essential steps. And for those that don't follow what I'm saying yet, what I'm basically referring to are the big four transformations of the last, century and a half or so. The energy layer is the electric grid, where basically, as Ford said, we convert natural energy into electric energy. You have coal plants, or today we have like nuclear reactors or solar panels or burning natural gas. We convert natural wealth of the earth and the sun and the earth's core into electricity that can then be distributed in a global electric grid, or a series of very large electric grids that communicate with each other globally. And then, what is something that converts that electricity, that energy, into information? Well, that's a computer. Obviously, you plug it into the wall, electricity flows in, and then you get information out. Again, this all comes back to conservation of energy, like you're saying. Nothing's created or destroyed. The energy is transferred from the natural world into the electric system, into the information system, and then that information system communicates. Like we're talking on this video call here, it's virtually instantaneous for extremely low brute force physical cost. This is essential. It had to happen, and it had to happen after the computer for obvious reasons. And then, finally, we have this monetary layer, where basically it is an algorithm that condenses value closer and closer. And this gets to the big idea here. I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but the idea that Bitcoin is the monetary singularity of the human race. That basically what Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is an algorithm that converts natural wealth into information through computers that then communicates over the internet into this fixed ledger, that for the first time in human history, we have really our first measure of wealth. As absurd as that sounds, pretty much every money we've had before Bitcoin is a precursor to Bitcoin, because nothing else has been a closed system, and Bitcoin's the first closed system. And that's why people have a very hard time understanding it, because first of all, they don't understand money. Second of all, they don't understand how the money's corrupted. And third of all, they don't understand Bitcoin because it's not acting similarly to every other form of money we had. So anyway, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but no, to answer your question, that's what Ford more or less was predicting. And he actually tried to make Bitcoin. People don't know that. He actually tried in the 1920s. He failed, obviously, because that information or the communications, aka internet or computer, he couldn't have made Bitcoin. But he actually tried because he believed it was extremely important for the future of humanity.